My name is Laurelee, and this is It's Not About Food. So it's not about food, and it's not about weight. What is it about? Everything else, because it's never ever about food or weight. Never ever, not even one time, not ever, ever, ever. Hello. So today's program is on body wisdom, following the programs of Body Love cards. And the image on the Body Love card this week is the image is a woman kind of grounded into the earth, and then a sort of her head is in a tree. So she is her tree. She is her strong and powerful tree. And the little dog deer kind of being looks on at her and is also grounded. So we use that image a lot in recovery because we have to remember that we are, our body is so important to walk us around the world, to live in this world. If we don't have a body, we don't get to be here. And so the card reads, body wisdom is the inherent wisdom we each hold within our own bodies that tells us what we need physically, emotionally, and spiritually. When we listen to the wisdom of our bodies, we intuitively know how to feed ourselves, satisfy our needs, and accept our natural bodies. And for me, having an eating disorder, I lived in my head. I lived in a program in my head, a diet in my head, whether I was overeating or undereating, dieting or not dieting or restricting or purging, whatever it was all from the head. I very seldom checked into myself physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Didn't even want to go there, didn't want to hear it, didn't want to learn that. But as I recovered, I had to trust in the wisdom of my body, that my body knew how to eat. It knew how to move. It knew how to go to sleep. It knew how to pee. It knew when it needed water. And that was a much bigger part of me than just my head, and especially the eating disorder telling me what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. So just getting into the body sometimes is very painful when you have an eating disorder, but it is so necessary, because if we don't do it, we just are walking around a big head and we don't know where we're going, what we're doing, and how we're doing. I am really happy today to introduce Lindsey to the program, and she's going to talk with me about her experience of body wisdom. And so I'd let her introduce herself. I've known her for a long, long time and seen her grow and change, and she's seen me grow and change. And it's really wonderful to be in the same room with her doing this podcast.
Thank you, Laurelee, so much for having me here. I appreciate the time and for you contacting me. And my name is Lindsey Wert, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and also somebody who has recovered from anorexia and bulimia. And while I was looking through your cards, the one that really spoke to me was body wisdom. And I do specialize in working with eating disorders as well as working with post-traumatic stress disorder. And I find that a lot of the time, those two things go hand in hand for a lot of people who are in recovery from eating disorders. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I love what you just said, eating disorders and post-traumatic stress, because how can you have an eating disorder and not have post-traumatic stress? Every time you look at a piece of cake, you're going to have post-traumatic stress. Or you see, we compare ourselves to so many people all the time, all day long, that ends up being that kind of PTSD response. So I'm really happy that you're working with that. So do you have a website, or do you have a
Yeah, so I do have a website. My website is selflovetransformations.com. And you can find out a little bit about what I do there, how I work, what modalities I use. I really do, my essence of my heart is doing a lot of soul-based work using somatic, movement, art therapy, as well as DBT, CBT, all of those things, and EMDR. But I really do like depth-oriented psychotherapy.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. So how do you work with yourself or with your clients when you have come face to face with how little they trust their body wisdom, or do they even know that there is body wisdom, or how do you lead them to get that back, to get that trust back in themselves?
Laurelee, that's a really good question. I feel like for each person, it's different. Definitely, I feel like for most individuals who are wanting to recover, the first piece of working before we can even get necessarily to the body wisdom is really working with the cognitive piece of distinguishing what part is the disorder.
Yeah.
What part is yourself? What part is healthy? What part's not? And starting to distinguish that before they're able to really start to drop down more into their body.
Yeah.
I really do work a lot with, deciphering different, like I see what I like to work with is as I look at, we have different types of hunger. One type is emotional hunger.
Yep.
We have physical hunger. We also might have relationship hunger of, kind of wanting touch and all of that. And also there's the physical hunger. And so, and the spiritual hunger.
Right.
And so I try to work with people around food when they're hungry, when they're not hungry, start to work with what is it that your emotional self is needing. Are you needing a hug? Are you needing to be told, I love you? Are you needing somebody's hand to hold? Physical hunger for most people, of course, recovering from an eating disorder is you have to work on eating on a schedule because you're not aware of that yet, right?
Yeah,
you're not aware
of
that yet. But what I think is important with that is I'll see clients start to be able to notice, okay, like I'm craving this food, but really I noticed that it's because I'm needing something sweet in my life, or I'm wanting to hang out with a friend, and it's actually my body's not really needing that or wanting that.
Right.
So with body wisdom, I really also work a lot with having my clients, pick a stable person in their life, or even if it's an animal. How do you know that animal's in touch with their body? Right. It likes to play. It knows when it's hungry. Most animals will stop when they're full. I know some type of breeds of dogs, it's a little harder, but then
the lab.
I was thinking lab. Yep. But with that body wisdom, really looking at, who is an example in your life who really shows that hasn't really had a diet mentality, who is, able to look at food and stop when they're full, eat when they're hungry. A good example is I remind clients when they say, like, oh, I can never have that. It's like, actually, you did at one point.
Exactly.
When you were a baby, you knew when you were hungry, when you were full, all of that. And that really it's looking at and working at breaking down, okay, what takes that away, that body wisdom? Is it some of the cultural messages? Is it the societal message that I need to eat a certain way? What's eating disordered? What's your parents? And trying to break that down to start to establish what is mine.
Yep.
Which really starts to work into learning what the body wants.
Yep. Yeah. That innate wisdom that's there, hidden maybe from years and years of not paying attention. I mean, that's how it was for me. I feel like I wasn't really put on a diet at a young age, but my food was very regulated at a young age. I was not in charge of my own food. And that didn't happen for a really long time. So I had no idea if I was hungry or not, or was sleepy or not, or needed to do anything or not. I had to look to other people to tell me what to do because they did do that. They took over my whole life. I wasn't in charge of my own body. So that is a really big piece of finding that out. And I like what you said, to sort of look at the cognitive ideas of what is disordered eating thinking and what's kind of not. And it gets all jumbled up as we get an eating disorder. What we're telling ourselves sometimes is so far from the truth.
Yeah, that's right. And I think for a piece of the body wisdom with individuals who are in recovery, it's really hard to be like, oh, like, let's notice the food in my stomach or how that food tastes. So I like to start a little bit more simpler.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like bring in some essential oils or something that smells good. Okay, like what does that feel like to your body? Where do you sense it? How do you feel it? If we go outside and put our feet on the earth,
yeah.
what do you feel? What do you feel when you touch something? And start to bring and build in the senses like that safe, that feels safer.
Yeah.
Before we fully go into the body, the really like, how does your stomach feel? How does your, what does that taste like? What does that feel like when it's going down? So there starts to be a little bit more of a container and a holding that doesn't feel so overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also part of the body wisdom is, how do we work with ourselves or our bodies when they're not well? I have a really good friend right now that has really bad cancer, and she is having to trust her doctors and not her body, because her body is doing something kind of crazy. There's cells that are eating other cells. But she has to also trust her intuitive self to say, no, I can tell you that that's not going to work for me, or this is going to work for me, or I need to get out of here, I need to move, or whatever. So it's a very confusing thing, especially when you're sick. Say like you have anorexia and you're really, really thin and you think you're not thin. Or when I had bulimia, I just felt like I could never hold any food down, not even water sometimes. So what do we do when the body signals have gotten really confused?
That's a really good question. I definitely think that's definitely where I do. I have a treatment team. I have the doctor, I have the dietitian, there's me. A lot of it is to working on doing what is medically, it's a necessity, right? And then also tapping into that intuitive piece. And I think for a while, working with the individuals that you trust, your practitioners, good friends, to check in with them, like, this feels like my intuition, but I'm not sure. And really working with people who are going to tell you the truth, whether that's eating disordered or if that's intuition.
Right.
I definitely relate and with that part of your friend that's, struggling with cancer, because I've had my own health issues. And I think that my own struggles and my recovery from my own chronic tick-borne infections were the pivotal thing that actually weeded out the last remnants of the eating disorder for me.
Wow. Right. You kind of, okay, this is much bigger than just wanting to be thin.
Well, and you learn that you have to be in your body in a way that's, it is not that eating disorders aren't life and death, but it's a different type of life or death.
Definitely.
And it's your body loses the capacity to do what it does. And for me, it was the piece for me that really got that eating disorder, the exercise addiction out. Yeah. Because I was no longer able to physically do that to my body. And even though it's been difficult, it's also been a blessing that has taught me to listen to my body and my energy and its needs in a way that I don't know if I would have learned in the same capacity.
Yeah, it's such an interesting experience that you went through with that. It is, I don't know, when it is really life and death, somehow you have to choose to live or to die. And if you choose to live, it might be painful, but you're going to have to listen.
Yep, that's
You're going to have to listen to yourself and to others and to the doctor and a nutritionist.
Well, yeah. And I think too, it kind of touches on, and I think what I like to work with all of my eating disorder clients with, which really has to do, I think, with, I see body wisdom, also too, as I think that having a sense of connection with the earth and with purpose is also a part of body wisdom. And I feel like that if one is really in touch, that we are able to know and be more congruent with our body. Body wisdom, I think in our culture nowadays, we're getting distracted from our ability to even decipher what we need through electronics, through eating in front of the TV, through, wearing shoes all the time and not putting our feet on the earth. But that all of these things we're not actually doing the things that really make our body aware of what is real and true and healthy.
Yes. Yeah. And on that same note of that, like you keep saying, putting your feet on the earth, if we are going to sort of listen to and take heed to what our bodies are telling us, we also have to listen and take heed to what the earth is telling us.
Yes.
And how powerful is that? It's so much bigger than just our little selves. If it's good for our bodies, it probably is good for our earth. If it's not good for our bodies, probably not good for our earth,
Definitely.
If I'm not going to, I don't really want to drink toxic waste. So why am I putting it all over the earth,
That's right.
Yeah. And we have to carry both of those things as sacred, not only ourselves, but as the earth as well. That's really great. It brings it really blows it right out, what it's really all about. And so you've been involved with an organization for many years that is a beautiful organization. It's a nonprofit and brings a conference every year and then raises money for people to have scholarships for their own recovery, which, of course, recovery is not that cheap a lot of the time.
It's very expensive.
Yeah, especially if you need a lot of help, a lot of doctors, a nutritionist, therapist, psychiatrist, you need a lot of help. So talk a little bit more about that whole idea of, again, blowing it out into more of a bigger thing than just the one person doing therapy in her room. It's a much bigger thing that you're doing.
Yeah. So the nonprofit that I'm vice president. I'm moving into presidency in the next year and a half, is EDRS, and that stands for Eating Disorder Recovery Support, and it's edrscapital.net. And it was founded by two co-founders, Michelle Moniro and Haleh Kashani. And EDRS is a nonprofit, and the basis of our work at first was to really just to get to know eating disordered professionals in the community and to give out resources and support. And it built into a nonprofit. And, our mission is based on providing prevention, education, leadership, as well as education for eating disorders and to raise money to give scholarships out for people who can't afford treatment, a therapist, a dietitian, a psychiatric appointment.
Yep.
And I think we've been going for about almost 12 years now. And actually this year we are going to do a piece in October, actually, in Petaluma. And it's going to be a movement piece and some education. And it's really working on, how can we bridge that gap of, the eating disorder world and exercise, and making exercise a safe, healing thing that everyone needs to do in a loving way, whether you've had an eating disorder or not, but to bridge that gap of having a healthy relationship. And so that's what we're doing on October 12th at a yoga space. And stuff's going to be going out about that soon. And then we are actually also doing a one-day conference. We're pretty sure it's going to be in San Francisco on transgender related issues and eating disorders. And so we're really excited about that, and, really expanding knowledge and education, and having, people get resources where it's needed, and, having professionals have professional support with people who know about eating disorders. And so it's a really great organization that I'm really, really proud to be part of.
I am very proud that you're part of it too. And the little times that I would speak there every once in a while, or Carol Normandy and I would speak it for Beyond Hunger, for It's Not About Food, just always such a wonderful experience to see, first of all, such recovery, in one room of all kinds of ways. And then also all these wonderful people who work in the eating disorder field. I feel like we're I don't know, we're just very, very loving and kind and giving and compassionate people. So it's always fabulous to be in that space. And I also really love the whole idea of bringing more movement into this eating disorder recovery world. And because I know that I go to yoga. I've been going to yoga for many years. I can teach yoga. I've learned how to teach yoga. I have my certificate and blah, blah, blah. But there's so much pain in some women's eyes when they see these really thin yoginis walk in the door with really small clothing and they think, well, I'm not a good yogi. I'm not doing yoga right if I don't look like that. And I feel like we need to blow that out. We need to blow that up, that you can go to the gym, or you can go to yoga, or you can go for a walk, or you can do whatever exercise is your exercise, square dance. But you don't have to look like the person that's next to you doing exactly the same thing.
I think that's real, and that's awesome that you brought that up, because it really, there's that incorporation at health at every size, that anyone can do yoga. I actually just co-led we did 20 weeks. It was eating disorder teen support group with Jean Grant Sutton, who's a yoga teacher of 30 years in Petaluma.
Yes.
We did a group using yoga and then psychotherapy and movement with clients. And of course, a lot of my eating disorder clients was like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. But, by week 5, it was growing. And now they're like, oh, I'm using this. This was actually helpful. I don't hate you anymore for making me do it.
Yes.
But that, and it just, you're right, like bridging that gap of this is how, and again, I think that's a societal norm of advertising. Okay, like this is what you have to look like, in all the yoga magazines and everything, and that we have to break that stigma as well.
Yeah, it's the new diet. It's the new restriction.
Yes.
And it is like the diet industry has hijacked the word healthy, so now if you're healthy, that means you're thin. But that's not really what healthy means,
Right.
So yoga is for any body, and I'm giving a 3-day workshop down in Pacific Grove, the first of the year, with a woman who does a health at every size yoga class. And it's going to all be about that. Just love the body that you have and bring it to yoga and bring it to the workshop. But I think we have to do that so much more. And again, the body wisdom of our bodies love to move.
Yes.
They love to eat, and they love to sleep, and they love to pee, and they love to walk around, and they love to do everything just like a baby does. It doesn't matter that we're older. We still have these bodies that love to do these things. It's not brain surgery.
Yes, that's
it's
right.
It's just common sense, sort of. But I got so far away from that myself. Yeah. I made exercise an addiction. So for a while, I couldn't even exercise because I would just fall back into it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I think, if there was a person, a young woman in her room, right now going, oh my God, I'm not well, and I don't want to exercise, and I don't know what to do with myself, and I want myself to look really thin, and they're struggling in their room all by themselves, like so many of us started out, I think. What would knowing what you've been through and what your clients have been through, what would you say to that young young person, that young girl, what would you say to her?
I would definitely tell her that she's not alone, and that isolation factor, that there's so many people who go and fall into that, and that really the first step is finding someone that she can trust and starting the conversation.
Yes.
Putting that darkness into the light, because that is where transformation and that is where healing can happen.
Yeah. So I love that what you just said. If you're an isolator, and I definitely was, just opening up a teeny bit to talk one time to somebody makes you less isolated.
Yes.
So, and you're not alone. I love that. We're all alone in our little room, but we're not alone in the world when we can open up to. So, is there anything else that you'd like to put out there or say, or?
Just that recovery is possible, that being fully recovered is possible, and that truly our bodies do know what is best for us.
Yeah. Yes, very disappointing when you have an eating disorder.
They're so much smarter than our mind or any parts of our being.
That's right.
They know, and that is why, as a species, we have survived.
Yes, I know. Because they have counteracted the stuff that our brains come up with, for sure. Yeah. And you have a dog, and I have a dog, and I feel like my body is kind of like my dog. It is my responsibility to take it for a walk and feed it right and take it to the vet and all that. But it gives me such joy. And I have to trust it, just like I trust my dog to know what it needs and where it wants to go and what it wants to do. So yeah.
I try to eat as well as I feed my dog.
That's right. That's right. Take care of myself as well as I take care of my dog.
Yes.
Yeah. So will you read the today practice?
So the last part of the body wisdom card says, "Today I will practice trusting in the wisdom of my body. I will listen to my body when I am hungry and full. Listen for what my body wants and needs, and trust the intuitive voice of my body."
Oh, right. Trust the intuitive voice of our bodies. That is not something anyone is selling us in Weight Watchers or anything else. Trust the intuitive voice of your body. Beautiful.
That's going to save you a whole bunch of money.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. And be sure and follow me on Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and itsnotaboutfood.com. Thanks.